Suddenly, Monica turns to me, and with a glint in her eye and a mischievous smile, she says, and I won't try and do a Spanish accent, "Get him to take his shirt off." Dominic West, the 3rd of March, 2011. Now, I was a huge fan of The Wire. I loved the opening song. I think it was Tom Waits. It was called something like Into the Hole. And it kind of set the scene. And after the song faded away, you were kind of immersed in this other world. And the acting was so naturalistic, so method, that I actually took to watching the show with subtitles to ensure that I didn't miss a word of this extraordinary dialogue. West's portrayal of the central protagonist, the troubled cop, McNulty, was extremely convincing. When we were introduced at Holborn Studios, a kind of London photographic institution, a labyrinth of spaces where photographers have probably shot since the 1960s, I may have got that wrong, I was quite shocked to find he wasn't American. Instead, I met this suave Englishman, educated at Eton, rather than brought up on the mean streets of Baltimore. Before his arrival, let's just say there was a buzz of anticipation from my largely female crew. Normally, you get commissioned and then picture editors just don't bother turning up. They just let you get on with it. That's often my preference, but on this occasion, Monica Allende, the picture editor from the Sunday Times at the time, was in attendance. There was something earthy and puckish about his appearance. He was in the middle of filming Appropriate Adult for ITV. The drama was about the serial killers Fred and Rose West. And it's a testament to his acting that he was able to imbue Fred, this monstrous character, with some degree of humanity. His schedule, I mean, he's much more important than me, probably dictated the start time for the shoot. So when we convene, the sun is quite low in the sky as I'm setting up the colorama. I see there's one solitary window and I'm determined to have that as a possible light source. But with the light dwindling, that photographic door is closing rapidly. We're almost there. He's almost ready. We watch, transfixed, as the makeup artist carefully applies moisturizing lotion to his bronzed skin. Suddenly, Monica turns to me, and with a glint in her eye and a mischievous smile, she says, and I won't try and do a Spanish accent, "Get him to take his shirt off." Normally, I prefer to let things happen organically. The portrait, after all, is a record of the relationship you have with the person on the day. You want an authentic human exchange. I'm wrong-footed, I'm slightly taken aback, but I know I have to grab the bull by the horns. He's now discussing the clothes that he's going to be wearing with the stylist, and he's bare-chested. This is my moment. I casually saunter over to their little group and make a bit of eye contact with Dominic and say, "You're very brown. Have you been away? What's your exercise regime? You're very well proportioned. Is it part of being an actor to work out?" I was struggling. I'm starting to get quite embarrassed, and it's just not me. I'm not that guy. So I decide to throw Monica under the bus. I point at the red-faced picture editor at the far end of the studio, and I tell him she wants to have some setups with you without your shirt. And I assure him it'll just be head and shoulders. He laughs. So I turn all the lights off in the studio because the light coming through the window is so dim, and I lead him shirtless into that space in order to get my pictures. I think shooting someone in that way, naked and vulnerable, or certainly the skin, I think works better when it's not flash. It looks too contrived when it's flash. It looks like a studio, whereas the pictures with daylight look more authentic. Like I keep saying, flash kills the atmosphere. All the skin pictures were shot this way. I start by shooting him from behind with his back, and then his face entirely in shadow. It's a dangerous tightrope to walk. It's a balancing act. On the one hand, when you're faced with a celebrity, it's fascinating to portray them in a way that they haven't been seen before, where, you know, there's a sense of mystery that it's even them. But then on the other hand, the magazine, they're excited. They've got a shoot and an interview with Dominic West, and they want everyone to know. So they want a straightforward picture that conveys that fact. And to that end, I always make sure I give the magazine who are commissioning me what they need. A simple, straightforward headshot. After that, it was time for him to put his clothes back on. We used up the remaining daylight on the grey suit. And then, as he was changing into the black suit for the final run of pictures, I photographed that process. There was a stylist sort of steaming the suit while he was wearing it, and he was surrounded by stands and so on in the studio. I love to pull back and deconstruct and show how ludicrous it all is, what artifice we're all engaged in. It feels more honest to pull back the curtain. And I guess that's what this channel is, in part, a sort of an examination, an insight into what goes behind creating these celebrity portraits. I finished off with a classic combo, a black colour armour, one light on a stand with a softbox. He was wearing a black suit, so you had black on black. It kind of was what the magazine would like. I think they probably used that picture. We'll put the tear sheet in. And it was kind of the photography that inspired me when I started looking at colour supplements in the 1980s. It's really kind of aping Renaissance painting light, you know, light coming in through a window. And it works well. Everything was taken on a Canon 1DS Mark II, the camera I was using at the time. And the other thing worth reflecting on, and this applies to pretty much my whole oeuvre, every picture I've ever taken, which is that they were all captured with a standard lens. I mean, the Canon lens that I used was not even the best Canon lens. It was the 1.4 rather than the 1.2. And I don't want to get bogged down in equipment, but like photography, less is more. I very rarely used long lenses, and I very rarely used wide lenses. So most of the time I'm just using a standard lens, because as Cartier-Bresson observed, the camera is like a notebook. So you see the picture, you recognize something that you want to capture, and then you bring the camera up, and if you have a standard lens, it's a close approximation to what you've seen. Now, I can't say that I welcomed Monica's intervention. It's usually better to be left to get on with it. Preconceived ideas are the death of spontaneity, but it's also occasionally good to be pushed into doing something that you don't really want to do by other creative people like Monica, whatever their motivation for doing so. In the end, Dominic was relaxed and charming, and we made some good portraits. My weird opening gambit forgotten in the chatter about fatherhood and being middle-aged.